Ladies and gentlemen, Kerrod Walters. Welcome to the show, Kerrod. Welcome to Become Your Own Superhero.
It's a pleasure to be here, Laban. I'm glad to be here.
Well, it's an absolute delight to have you on the show, and I thought I'd kick this off with something that might be of interest to you. I punched Kerrod Walters into an anagram maker, and an anagram of Kerrod Walters is world beaters, would you believe?
World beaters, eh?
World beaters.
Interesting.
Would you say that you're a world beater?
No, I wouldn't say I'm saying that I'm sort of very lucky to have enjoyed playing a sport that I thoroughly enjoyed and would have played for nothing if I had to. So I think it's just all my brothers. We're just lucky that we had the ability to play a sport that people love to watch and enjoy, and we get to entertain them on a weekly basis and get paid for it. So how good's that?
Yeah, very good. And for our non-hardcore rugby league fans that are listening, what is the sport that you grew up and loved playing, Kerrod?
Rugby League, which is known as NRL. So yeah, grew up in Ipswich from a family of 5 boys. And when we were 5 years old, we started playing rugby league down at our local footy ground, which is 100 metres down the road, and just went through from under 7 through to first grade, and just loved every minute and loved training, loved getting in the backyard and playing with my brothers, and yeah, it was just great fun.
You've set a bunch of different records and been nominated and awarded a bunch of different prizes, but there's one particular one that will be a hard one to knock off, and that's the fact that you are part of the first ever set of twins to play rugby league for Australia. Is that right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so Kevin and I were the first twins to play. Initially started Origin, then for Australia, which we're very proud of that fact. And then the Morris twins, who obviously are current players now, have achieved the same feat, obviously playing for New South Wales and playing for Australia. So, but we're still very proud to achieve that honour, and I'm sure that the Morris twins are just as proud as well.
Well, look, they are, and I think I'm curious to know, with all your brothers, 3 of you made the international squad. What is it about growing up in a family of brothers like that makes things work in the way that they did?
Well, I think we sort of motivate each other to try and achieve great things, and I think just when we encourage each other as well. No one was ever jealous of anyone for achieving great honours, and that's how it was. That's how Mum and Dad brought us up, to treat each other with respect and to go and to do your best and give your all, and support each other.
And your father, he's since passed away a while back.
Yeah.
How old was he? How old were you when he passed away?
I would have been around just over probably 43, somewhere around there. Yeah, he passed away in 2010. Dad had a stroke, and yeah, it was sort of come out of the blue, and he was only just turning 71, so he was quite young by modern standards. Yeah, so we were very saddened through Dad's passing, but yeah, we had a lot of great memories with Dad, and we still got those memories to cherish for the rest of our lives. Yeah.
So look, your dad's gone now, which is unfortunate, but he would have left hopefully behind a legacy of some really great values. What were some of those?
Yeah, I think, like I said, to achieve things, and you got to work hard. And I think the one thing he taught me was to treat everyone like you would treat yourself. And that's my thing I've sort of gone through the rest of my life. I treat other people how I'd like to be treated myself, regardless of who they are and where they're from. So, and the other thing was just the big thing here: if you want to achieve things in life, you've got to work hard and have a positive attitude.
What does that look like, though, in terms of working hard? Because it's a great statement, but it's a hard reference point, I think, for some people that don't have a role model. And a lot of the guests that have been on the show and have spoken quite openly about growing up as part of a broken home, for example, where you don't have some of the role models that you've been blessed with growing up. What does that look like?
I think you can work hard, but you also got to work smart. That's one of the keys, I think, too. Is there's no use going down the track of trying to do something and getting nothing out of it. You got to work smart, and I think that's probably the key is identifying what you're going to need to do to get to where you've got to go, and just take those little steps along the way. and just set yourself goals. And I thought when I was younger, I didn't really set goals. I just loved. I loved going to school. I loved playing sport. I loved being around my family and my friends, and it just sort of our sort of careers evolved. We never sort of dreamed that we could sort of reach the heights that we could reach, and it just sort of happened as we went through our life. So, but I think an example is that after my first year, I played my first NRL game. I went into the off season in '89, and I knew that if I was going to get to stay at that level and achieve great things or good things, I'd have to be doing things that others weren't doing. So I actually trained. I actually went out and did a training run Christmas Day and New Year's Day because I knew that the others wouldn't be doing that. So I had a head start on in that regard. So that's the sort of mentality I had to get in that year in '89. I played State of Origin and played for Australia. So I think it helped me to got me off in the right direction, just doing something that others weren't. That I knew they wouldn't be doing to give me that edge.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to have on Sir Steve Hansen, the former All Black coach, and he was talking about Richie McCaw's work ethic and how he was very, very far from the most talented bloke in that squad, but he worked the hardest, and it's been really beneficial for me hearing these stories, particularly in the last 4 or 5 years, where you can actually work hard enough at something to become world class. You don't necessarily have to be born with I think I use that term loosely as well, like you're born with a genetic predisposition, but it's hard work that gets you to those heights.
That's exactly right. Well, players like Richie McCaw, they're the players that your teammates love to play with. And when I talk to young up sort of budding rugby league players, I ask them, there's 3 types of players in our game. There's player A, who has limited ability, but will go out there each week and give 100% and do whatever it takes to win. And there's player B, who has enormous ability, but takes the shortcuts and, not prepared to do what it takes to win. And then there's player C, who has enormous ability and does whatever it takes to win and doesn't take shortcuts. And they're your superstars. So which player do you want to be? Player A, player B, or player C?
Do you talk much to the up and coming kids about, like, if it's something they want to take to the top, that they really need to be super duper passionate about playing the game?
Yeah, you got to be passionate about whatever you do in life. You got to wake up each day and want to get stuck into it. But one sort of, I think, an important message to young kids is always have a plan B, because plan A doesn't always necessarily work out. In particular, in having a professional career in sport, because only a certain amount of kids get the opportunity to play at that level, and unfortunately there's going to be lots that miss out. So always have a plan B, and plan A mightn't always work out, so make sure you have a plan B, and that's get to school and study hard and make sure you got a plan B.
What was your plan B?
My plan B, well, I was an electrician by trade, so I did my apprenticeship in the railways. And the day I finished my apprenticeship was the day I left being an electrician and became pretty much a full-on professional footballer. Yeah, I played State of Origin and went on a tour to New Zealand, and I never went back to it. I just focused on playing footy and doing that. Yeah.
And you actually made your debut in my hometown of Christchurch, down at QE2 Park there against the Kiwis.
I did. Yeah, it was a very memorable occasion actually to play. It's amazing. You sort of watch as you keep growing up and you see the players before you that had played for Australia and how wonderful players they were, and imagine what that was like. And when you're sitting there in the dressing room, you're sitting there beside these Wally Lewises and the Melvin Ingers and the Gene Miles, those type of players who were legends in my time. You think, I'm sitting here with these guys about to go on and play for my country. This just can't be real. And actually, Blocker Roach was one of my front rowers, and Sam Bacco, and they certainly looked after me during that Test series against New Zealand, because it got a bit spiteful, that series. So I was very lucky to have a couple of guys in my corner looking after me.
Have you got all your original teeth, Kerrod?
I haven't. No, this one here. I never lost it during footy, but after I got a few obviously hits around the face and around my mouth, and it actually went, that tooth, I had to get a root canal. And then one day I was actually eating a hamburger, and I was chewing. I thought, oh, there's something in my hamburger. Oh, there's something hard in my hamburger. With half of my tooth, it snapped off. So I did a quick dash to my dentist to get something put in there place just to could get my implant done. Yeah, so I was pretty lucky. I had very few injuries throughout my career, so very lucky. Still managed to keep my good looks as well.
Well, there's no denying that at all. And I'm curious to know, was there any particular regime that you had back then that's proved to be something that a lot of the other players do to this day with regards to keeping fit and strong and nutrition, whatever it might be?
I just think that every training I did, I put my best in. I just thought that that if you don't take shortcuts, when it comes to a situation in the game when you need to dig deep and find some mental toughness, I just needed I'd be ready for it. I remember doing actually spent some time in Adelaide, down at Adelaide Rams during the Super League days, and we're doing this particular training drill, and it had nothing to do with rugby league. It was going down this hill. It was, the slippery gravel road was a bit sort of hairy, scary, and a few of the guys were saying, "What are we doing this for?" I said, "You'll understand what we're doing it for when it gets to its game, a time in the game when it's the 75th minute. We've got to defend our try line to win the game, and that's when your true courage will come out and what you're prepared to do to win the game. And you won't be putting the cue in the rack like you're doing today. That's what losers do. Winners just do what it takes to win." And they didn't get it why we're doing it. The coach obviously knew why we're doing it. Yeah.
Bit of a side topic, Kerrod. Your mum, Sandra, she passed away in 2013. What was some of the amazing attributes that you got from your dear old mum?
Oh, Mum she was just the most beautiful mother. We couldn't do no wrong in her eyes, and Mum would never have a bad word to say about anyone. Mum saw the good in everyone. That's what she taught us, is to see the good in everyone. That everyone has, even though they might seem to have sort of some bad points about it, but you've got to look for the good in people, and the good will come out in them. So that was one thing that Mum taught us. Yeah.
Well, I heard, I saw a quote from your brother at her eulogy. She never said a bad word against anyone except Benny Elias during the State of Origin.
Oh, Bill, good mate Benny. Yeah, because Stephen and my brother Stephen and I had many famous battle against Benny Elias, but Benny was, he was a great competitor and never gave you an inch. And I think she might have got under Mum's skins, got under many Queenslanders' skins, old Benny. So yeah, that's the same as Wally Lewis getting under a lot of New South Wales people's skin. So that comes with how they play the game and what they do to try and win. Yeah.
Well, it's a fantastic memory, and I'm 40 now, Kerrod, and I grew up in the era in New Zealand where the Winfield Cup was probably the most amazing thing on TV, apart from maybe the All Blacks, because the Super Rugby competition didn't exist at that point, and you had that the Jimi Hendrix starting tune. You had and then they had the Jimmy Barnes and Tina Turner, Simply the Best.
Yep.
They were really fond memories, not only for me, but like certainly that my brothers and a lot of my friends at that time. And it seems like the game has changed significantly since then, particularly with regards to the biffo. Do you miss seeing the shenanigans that used to go on back then?
I do, and I can't. Yeah, it must be hard for the modern player to not to react to something that another player does, because it was they must have enormous discipline there. But I think it's the best thing for our game, because we want kids to grow up and that's how we wanted to play the game. I mean, it was a different game back when I played, and obviously prior to my career, it was much different as well. So, but I think that the product now is a better product in regards to that, and being a spectacle for both men and women. I think what the NRL did realise that 50% of the population were women, so you had to come up with a product that was going to be appealing to both men and women. And I think the product that particularly in the 90s, it was a fantastic product. And this year, with the rule change that Peter V'landys has brought in with quicking up the play of the ball, has really brought it back to those 90s when it was fast, flying open rugby league, but without the biffo, but still ferocious defence. And some of the impacts are unbelievable in the modern game, which the collisions are just frightening. Yeah.
Well, I tend to agree with you, I think, Kerrod, with regards to the example that we need to set the youth of tomorrow. But I just wonder, with what's gone on in modern society with regards to the resilience of kids, or lack of, particularly growing up in this generation, what are your thoughts on what's needed to happen to improve that in the world?
I think we need a bit more tough love. I mean, that's what my parents gave me. But they gave us tough love, and obviously Wayne Bennett, my first coach, was all about tough love. You know, that you've got to take the knocks with the, and you've got to learn from that. And I think we don't. There's not enough tough love. No one wants to come second or third or last. Someone's got to come second. Someone's got to come last. I think coming in those positions make you want to strive harder to come first. You know, it's about. But life's like that. You know, you don't get things handed to you on a platter. You got to work. You got to work to whatever you want to achieve. And no one's just going to go, here you go. Here's a fantastic life. There you go. So I think that's, you know, might be what's lacking at the moment. And I think the best way to describe it could be when we misbehaved as kids, we got sent to our rooms. We weren't allowed to go outside and play. But now, if kids misbehave, you've got to send them outside to play, because if you send them to their rooms, there's the computers, there's there's Xboxes, there's phones. So that's how society's changed. So we've got to get the kids outside, get them playing, rather than get them stuck in their rooms and getting on computers and iPads, etc.
Well, I'll throw a hypothetical at you, Kerrod. Let's pretend you are elected Prime Minister, which, given your political background, which we'll talk about in a minute, is not that necessarily hypothetical. What is the first rule that you would bring, or the first law that you would introduce?
Good question. I think I'd just like to give everyone the opportunity to try and, obviously to gain employment. We've got to obviously I know that there are people out there that don't wish to work, but there are a lot that do. So we've got to put things in place to allow people to, if they want to work, to work. Particularly in the current situation, it's very difficult with COVID and what it's done to our employment, and made it difficult for people to gain work. So I think there's nothing more better than when someone gets a job, it gives them purpose. And I know a young kid that did a bit of work for me. He's actually one of the kids of one of our staff in our clothing business, and he just didn't want to work, and he had no purpose in life. And I try and encourage him, and now he's got a job, and he's just totally changed. He feels like he's making a contribution. He doesn't feel worthless anymore. He feels like he can contribute to society, and that's by getting a job and making him feel like he's getting ahead and achieving things. And it's amazing what a job can do for your self-esteem and about teaching your lessons as well. And that was a great example. I thought, just by getting a job, he feels like he's making a contribution, and he's just unbelievable how his attitude's turned around.
Yeah, fantastic. And just dabbling back on the political side of things, you were involved with Glenn Lazarus a couple of years ago in the last election. What was that all about?
So Lazo was a senator, obviously in Australian federal parliament, and he initially got in under Clive Palmer's party, but Lazo decided in his wisdom that he'd like to go out on his own, and he formed his own party, the Glenn Lazarus team. So then in the federal election in 2016, I think it was, Lazo contacted me and said that he felt that he might have an opportunity to get more seats in his party in the Queensland Senate. Would I like to come on board? I said, it sounded like because I was looking for a challenge. I thought that'd be a challenge. I'd like to try and make a contribution in that regard. And I really thought Lazo was actually had his heart in the right place. He was a fantastic player as a rugby league player, but I think he generally was in there for the right reasons. He was there trying to make a difference to Queensland in regards to getting changed to make it a better state to live in. And so I got on board, but unfortunately, we didn't get the votes were required to not only get Lazo, but to get me in as well. But it was a great experience. I learned, I got out and spoke to people about what their problems were and how we could try and bring some change to, particularly in the sort of the country areas where they do get quite forgotten sometimes. Also, the city areas get plenty of attention, but the Lazo focused on the country areas where he felt that that people needed a real hand. That was what my focus was as well.
Brilliant. And what are some of the major areas of challenge that the country folk of Australia are facing at the moment that they want to address?
Well, I think just jobs. There's just a lack of jobs in a lot of the outback towns there. The towns are dying because, particularly if you look at the mining industry, a lot of the workers in the mining industry are fly in, fly out. So they just fly in, live on the camp and fly home. They don't invest a lot of money into the town. They don't improving infrastructure. So that's probably what's happened to a lot of our country towns, is that they're just dying because no one wants to live there. So they just need a big injection of funds to help get some jobs and get some industry happening back in there, because farming's obviously struggling at the moment as well.
Did it trigger any interest in maybe pursuing the political arena further for you?
No, I just realised that I had my crack at it, and it probably wasn't for me neither. So, but I enjoy the opportunity to learn how that side of politics works, and I learned a lot of things. But yeah, I scratched the itch, I ticked the box, so I'll move on.
What are some of the other areas or employment routes that you've gone down into that we're not aware of?
Yeah, well, so initially when I did my apprenticeship as an electrician, and did my 4-year apprenticeship and finished that. Then I got obviously into rugby league, and then after rugby league I got into sales. I did real estate sales for about 8 years, and then I joined up with a mate of mine who had played rugby league with a guy called Mark Hone, who has a massive commercial cleaning business statewide in Queensland. So I came on board as his business development manager to grow his Sunshine Coast region, and did that for about 18 months, and then I thought, I might do something for myself here. So we went back and we opened up our own real estate business. Did that for about 12 months, and then on the side, we started growing our commercial cleaning business as well, and also at the same time we started a ladies' fashion boutique chain. We had our first shop in Caloundra in 2016, opened our second shop at Kawana in 2017, and our third shop in Cotton Tree in 2018. So, and it's been great. My wife's done a fantastic job with growing the business, and she's got a really good name and reputation here on the Sunshine Coast, and actually now throughout Australia, because we actually went online last year, and during COVID was actually what probably saved our business, was the fact that we're an online business that we could actually operate during COVID, which saved us. Yeah.
Brilliant. And your beautiful wife, Desley?
Yes.
Desley. And how long have you guys been together for?
12 years now. Yeah, I have to think about that. Yeah, 12 years. 12 years. Yeah. Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? So yeah, we sort of met in 2008, and yeah, we've been sort of together ever since. And yeah, she's a fantastic lady, and yeah, taught me many lessons in life as well. She's probably the most positive person I've ever met. Every day she gets up and she just loves life, and she inspires you to want to get on board and get on the bus and let's go. Yeah.
Now, Desley was around when you had a heart attack when you were in your mid-40s.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what went on down there?
Yeah, it was, well, that came out of the blue, and the story is, it was 2013, and I'm actually watching Friday night footy, as you do, and I think the Cowboys were playing South Sydney, and the Cowboys were getting a few rough calls from the referees. So I got on the phone and rang my brother Kevin. He said, "What about these poor Cowboys? They're getting a raw deal." He said, "Settle down, Kerrod." He calls me Franco. "Settle down, Kerrod. It's only a game of footy. It's okay." I said, "Yeah, you're right. It's only a game of footy, so I'm just, So the next morning, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up with a pain in my left shoulder. I just thought I must have slept funny on my shoulder, and I got up to go to the toilet, and I started feeling dizzy. I started sweating. I felt like I was going to faint. And I said to Desley, "I don't know what's wrong. I just feel terrible. I don't know what it is." And she said, "Well, what do you know?" I said, "I don't know." She said, "Well, I think we better take you to the hospital." I said, "Yeah, you probably should go." And we just jumped in the car and went. And we probably, in hindsight, probably should have called the ambulance, but we were only 5 minutes from the hospital. So we jumped in the car, and during that 5-minute drive, I just started feeling worse and worse. And I just remember sort of getting out of the car and sort of staring into the emergency department in Caloundra Hospital, and sort of telling what my symptoms, and then the minute they had me on the bed, and they'd given me a tablet which they put under my tongue, and obviously within 5-10 minutes I felt fine, and I said, "Oh, look, I feel pretty good now. I'm able to go home." They said, "Mr. Walters, you're going nowhere." I said, "Why?" They said, "Mr. Walters, you've had a heart attack." I said, "You're kidding me? A heart attack?" I couldn't believe it, because I was still really fit, and I was didn't smoke. Wasn't overweight, so I had no sort of symptoms that would sort of point you in that direction. So I went to the Nambour ICU, and then they took me down to Budrum Private, and I had a angiogram, and they obviously put the camera in, and they found that I had a blockage in one of my main arteries, and so they put it's my dog, sorry Henry, and so they put the stent in, and I was fine, but all my footy friends and my family were just shocked that, because I was always one of the fittest guys around the team, that I'd actually had a heart attack. And of course, I got all the texts. We didn't realise you had no ticker. We didn't realise you had a ticker, and all sort of stuff. And then the funny thing is when Desi rang Kevy to tell him what had happened, the first thing Kevy said was, he took that Cowboys loss bad, didn't he? But it was just, so I was very lucky actually, because I sort of understood how many people have heart attacks and how many people survive heart attacks. And I think it's about 46% of people that actually have heart attacks survive. I was very lucky.
Even he's getting excited about the heart attack story.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah, so I realised that. So I sort of took it upon myself to try and tell my story with the Heart Foundation, because they said that once again there's three things, that scenarios from heart attack. Also the scenario that I had where you have it and you get to the hospital and everything's okay. Then the scenario B where you ignore the symptoms and by the time you try and act on it, it's too late and you're gone. And the other one is if you're remote or you just can't get to your hospital in time, and that's the third scenario. So, but the one that really worried me was the fact that most men and women too, but most men just ignore it and don't think they're having a heart attack, and then it's too late. So I got out there and took it upon myself to try and tell my story, to try and tell men that it's the worst thing you can do is not go to the hospital, go to a doctor. Get checked out and make sure that everything's fine, and then what have you done? You could save your own life. So yeah.
Well, I mean, thank goodness, and good on you for having the courage to talk about it. And this is something I want to explore a little bit, Kerrod, because we're not too far apart in age when you really boil it down. And we grew up in an era where it was really sort of frowned upon to talk about feelings, and particularly like a lot of mental health stuff and physical health. And I don't know about you, but like there's a lot of people that I've known of, thankfully not too many close friends that have been directly affected by, a lot of depression and that type of thing. Although now I think about it, there has actually been quite a few, but no one that's actually committed suicide. How important is it that you actually do something about how you're feeling these days?
Yeah, I just think now more than ever, you've got to, if you're feeling just not right, or if you're not yourself, just get some help. Talk to someone. Talk to your mates. Because I think that whole stigma is gone. That it's weak to express your feelings and let someone know you're feeling down and you're weak. I think a strong person will seek help. A weak person won't. So a strong person, find the help that you need, because not only will you be saving yourself, but you've got to think of your family and friends and what they have to go through as well. If you're gone, so find the courage to talk to someone and get some help, because it's not weak, it's strong.
Have you had any feedback from anyone that you've shared your story of your heart attack with, that's gone and got checked and turned out there was something wrong with them? And thanks to you?
A couple of people, yeah, but I haven't sort of had a lot of, so you don't hear too much. But yeah, a few people have, that have thought, when they heard about me, they got checked out just to make sure, because they thought, if it could happen to him, it could happen to me. So, and it's not a heart disease; it isn't an old person disease. It's I think it was 45 or 46 at the time, so that's pretty young. You think it's a disease affects older people, but I remember when I was actually in hospital, there was a 25-year-old girl who was there, and the doctor, my doctor said, how can a 25-year-old girl have done enough damage to her heart to have heart disease? So it's, you just got to go in and it doesn't, it just get checked out for sure. Yeah.
Well, there's quite a lot of not stigma, but there's a lot of association with the leagueies being quite a raucous bunch and partying pretty hard. There's always a leaguey in the news in some way, shape, or form,
Yeah.
whether it be for good or for not so good. What about you and your discipline with regards to drinking and partying, particularly when you were playing? What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I always prepared well. I didn't have any, during a game, before a game, or during the week. I just felt, how we sort of operated in our day was that if we played well, we enjoyed the win. We had a good time after the game, and then come Monday we're back focused again. So, that was how we did it. Obviously, we enjoyed. I think that you've got to enjoy your wins, because you train hard, you work hard for your victories. I think as a team, you've got to go out and enjoy those successes. That's how the game has probably changed, because of the drinking culture, and the fact that that the game, they get paid a lot of money now. With the big wages comes big responsibility, because to get those big wages, you need lots of sponsorship, lots of game revenue, and that's how it is these days. You can't be tarnishing the brand. And if I was in the modern game, that's how I would be as well. You've got to take the responsibility. You're a role model, and also you've got a responsibility to not tarnish the brand.
Yeah, and it sort of goes back to that role model, that leading by example. The biffo that's come out of the game, and getting through the week without making the headlines for doing something that might have been blown out of proportion or whatever.
But I think, Leighton, I think on the whole, I think all sporting codes, AFL, NRL, soccer, or even in union as well, that the not majority of guys do a really good job. They're role models. They treat their teammates and their people with respect, and don't sort of get out of line. You think about it, like even the NRL, there's 500 professional players in the NRL. So that's a small percentage that do the wrong thing. I think in general they do a really good job. There are guys that have done the wrong thing, but if you look across society, I think that the NRL boys do a pretty good job, and all the other sporting codes as well, because they're very heavily scrutinised. Let's be honest. So I think they do a great job.
Yeah, well, I'd agree with you, Kerrod, and I think I played my very first code was rugby league, playing for the Addington Magpies, playing when I was centre, and it's my Siri telling me hey, you just watch yourself. Growing up in Christchurch, playing for the Addington Magpies, and then I switched over to Union because I never got the ball. I was playing at centre, and but I always used to win those McDonald's the cheeseburger vouchers for the most amount of tackles, and it really set me up for when I switched over to Union, because I was a fearless tackler at that point. But the code that I've sort of invested my time in has been cricket for the last forever, and I'm still involved with a club down here, Melbourne University, and the thing that I've noticed about particularly a lot of the elite players, and I've been fortunate enough to we had Ryan Harris on the show, Chris Rogers, Justin Langer came on recently as well, and it's all a very similar story. The discipline, the work ethic, it's not conducive to being off your head, partying all the time. Like, it's not sustainable. Is it? No. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, they're professional athletes, and you've got to prepare to play well. And that means get preparing to the best you can. If you come into training hungover or not yourself, straight away you're setting yourself up for failure. So I just think particularly in the modern game, we're looking for that edge. Over that, like I did when I was training Christmas Day and New Year's Day. You've got to have that edge, and you've got to prepare as best you can, because over that 80-minute sort of period during a game, you've got to make sure that you make the most of those 80 minutes and you're on your game. And I think that's the way you got to be. But actually, it just reminded me what you said, Christchurch, and my first trip to New Zealand in '89, and I just didn't realise how big the All Blacks were in New Zealand, and they were just it was everyone every second, every person had an All Black jersey on. There was All Black signs everywhere, and mate, he's got his All Blacks are big time over here, because rugby league was still sort of finding its way, and then probably 94, 95 when the Warriors came in, I think rugby league sort of went to another level in New Zealand. But that when my first trip, I just could not believe the aura and the respect and the high regard that the All Blacks were held in over New Zealand. They were hot gods. It was unbelievable.
Here's a trick one for you. Who do you prefer, Ray Warren or Graham Hughes commentating?
Oh, I mean, they're both good comment. Obviously, Ray Hadley's or Hadley. They're both good commentators, but yeah, I mean, you got to go with I've lost my train of thought there. Got to go with Ray Warren. I mean, yeah, Rabbits, like his longevity. His longevity is without peer. So he's been commentating there for 40 years, at that elite level. So
something ridiculous.
He loves the game, and he sort of brings a different dimension to the game. And he's been at his peak for a long period of time. So yeah, he's the man, I think.
He's the Richie Beno of NRL, I think.
Richie Beno of NRL, that's him, yeah. Ray Rabbits Warren, that's him. Actually, remember him calling my first Origin game. He was calling me. He said, "This little hooker from Ipswich, Kerrod Walters, he goes all right, doesn't he? Look at him go." I've always been a fan of him after that. I sort of ran. I said, "Mate, my first Origin, you gave me a rap, so I've always been a fan of you, mate."
Well, speaking of fans, Kerrod, and when I was 14 in New Zealand at Christchurch Boys High, I was a Canberra Raiders fan, a massive fan, and I was a huge Brett Mullins fan, and I said to Mum, who was a hairdresser, I said, "Can you shave Brett Mullins' name in my head?" She fucking ran out of room and it said Brett Mull, and I turned up to school and he was like, "What the fuck's Brett Mull?"
He was a fantastic player, Brett Mullins. Yeah, great player.
Fantastic.
One particular game on a Friday night down in Canberra at Bruce Stadium, it was freezing cold, and he just did a job on us. He was unbelievable, and he was a great player, fantastic player.
Was that the game that he scored an end-to-end try with a couple of kick and a chase?
I think it was, yeah. You're bringing back bad memories there, but yeah, I think it was, yeah. There was no worse game than Canberra on a Friday night at Bruce Stadium. It was always freezing cold. It was a full house. It was just, yeah. I don't think we ever won on a Friday night down there in Canberra. They had such a fantastic team too. So, but the amazing thing was that because the Broncos and the Raiders dominated the 90s and never ever played in the grand final. Probably much to mum and dad's relief, because they would have hated to watch us in the grand final. But we never ever played. We played them in like the semi-final, but no grand finals. But, it's amazing because from 87 to 2000, my mum and dad went to 14 grand finals in Sydney to watch either the Broncos or the Raiders. So,
wow,
not a bad effort, eh? Really.
Well, you managed to get a couple under your belt, a couple of grand finals.
Yeah, it was 92. 92 was our first one, and we were sort of building from day one. In '88, we had a fantastic footy team, but we had to learn how to win at that level of footy. And we learned, 1992, we went all the way and won the grand final quite comfortably. And it didn't really sort of hit home until we got back to Brisbane, how much it meant to our supporters and how much support we had. Remember getting back to the airport, and there were thousands of people at the airport. We got in the bus and we were back to King George Square in the city, and once again thousands of people there to welcome us back and support us. And then got back to the Leeds Club, and on the field was just full field. We were on the back of a truck with we're all standing there, and I think the first one was Alf decided to crowd surf. He jumped in the crowd and over he went. And then I think Kevy was next. And I think Wayne Bennett might have won as well. And then the fourth person was big Senator Glenn Lazarus. And Lazarus dived off the truck, and then it was like the party with the Red Sea. So Lazarus went boom, hit the ground. I said, we can't support you. They said, it was so funny. Lazarus hit the ground. It was like the party with the Red Sea. But then when Alf got across to the side of the field, and they sort of got him across on top, someone had taken his shoes. He had no shoes. So obviously going into the Leeds Club. So he ended up wearing his football boots into the Leeds Club that night, because you had to wear shoes because of for safety regulations. So funny night. And then it actually helped him, because it actually gave him a couple of inches so he could actually see above the bar and order a drink. So he was very lucky.
Because there wouldn't be many people with, I don't know what size Alfie Langer's shoes were, but I'm guessing they weren't very big.
No,
And I'm doubt Glenn Lazarus had a spare pair of size 16 or whatever he was.
no, it would have been a kid that confiscated because they wouldn't fit anyone else. Yeah.
How big was Glenn Lazarus at his peak, do you think?
So, like any with us, it was about 100, 120 kilos. Yeah, 120 kilos, and like there was no more mobile person than him. He was phenomenal. That's what made him such a great player because he was so big, but he was so mobile. Get across the field and pull off cover saving tackles, and yeah, he was a phenomenal player, Lazo. Yeah, like Stephen and I were blessed to have played with him because he made our job so much easier because of the yards he got, and he'd play the ball with three blokes hanging off him. Off we go, So yeah, and I know Blocker Roach has got a high opinion of him. Yeah, he's the best I've seen. Yeah, Lazo.
Who are your top three favourite other rugby league players of all time?
Well, obviously, first was the King. Everyone loved when we grew up. We loved the King. We were at the first State of Origin game in 1980 at Lane Park, as it was known back then. Because my older brother Brett, and Alf's older brother Kevin were playing in the Queensland under 18 curtain raiser. So we're there. We jumped in the Holden from Ipswich and made our way down. And because back then there was no ticket tech, so we were lined up with thousands of people. And we thought, Dad, we're not going to get in here, Dad. So Dad said, Dad had a plan B. See, he had plan B was he had the pair of pliers. We snuck around the back and we cut a hole in the fence in Hale Street, and through we went, along with another 5,000 people behind you. So the crowd with that was actually 5,000 short because there were 5,000 went through the fence with us. And never forget it when Arthur Beecham led the Queensland team on, and I thought to myself, I want to play Origin. That's what I want to do. And was it 9 years later I got the opportunity to play, and Arthur Beecham was my coach, and Wally Wilson was my captain. So just unbelievable, yeah. So Wally he's my all-time favourite, yeah.
Number two?
Number two. Let me think. Well, I was also a big. I used to love Peter Sterling and Brett Kenny. Just thought they were wonderful players, and of that, Peter Sterling and Brett Kenny. Just trying probably those three, yeah, because I don't really have any. I have a lot of favourites, but that'd be my three that I used to love watching play. Yeah. Mm.
And your favourite ever rugby league memory?
I'd have to say that probably the 92 grand final. I mean, like playing for Queensland and playing for Australia is like it's a personal thing, but to win a premiership that's what you train all year for, to win and to celebrate it with your teammates, and to win that in 92 was just phenomenal. To think how hard we worked to get there, and we'd finally done it. That, and then probably, like I said, sitting in the dressing room before the first Origin in 1989 at Lane Park, as it was named then, and sitting there and beside these legends of State of Origin football, and having Arthur Beecham come over and say, "Here you go, son. Here's your first State of Origin jersey. We're a proud son. We believe in you." And I just thought, how good's this? And then when you run out onto Lane Park, and then the Lane Park crowd just erupts, and I'm getting tingles on my neck now thinking about it.
I'm getting tingles too.
It's just a phenomenal experience. And I used to say to my son, I say, Brooke, I said, there's only one thing better than watching State of Origin at Lane Park, and that's playing it, mate. And I hope you get the opportunity one day, but obviously you never got the opportunity, so you won't get the opportunity. So, but yeah, it's just phenomenal. Yeah.
That feeling that you're talking about, Kerrod, is it just amplified by a factor that you can't even really quantify compared to playing, say, club league or a club sport in a final?
I think so. Obviously, the grand final, those big games, semi-finals and grand finals, they're up there. But that Suncorp Lane Park atmosphere, it's just unbelievable. I remember a couple of years ago, some friends of ours who from Tasmania, I said, "You've got to come and watch a State of Origin game." I said, "You will not experience anything like it." So they went, and they were blown away by the atmosphere. And obviously Queensland won the game, and they just said, "This is that's what makes State of Origin, particularly in Queensland, is the supporters and the crowd." And I think that what we've done as a Queensland team is we've taken on board that responsibility. We're not to play for Queensland isn't you're right. You know, it's a privilege, and the privilege makes you represent your state and those people that come there since 1980 to support Queensland. It's your obligation to go at them and play for them and play well. And that's what we had, that great period under Mel, where we won all those series in a row. And then I think that they understood that it was their turn we passed the baton onto them. And it was their responsibility to do Queensland proud and to play for their state, because the state that they just love their footy. Yeah.
What's your worst injury playing the game, Kerrod?
My worst was a dislocated wrist, which was a pretty uncommon injury. I remember I got it playing down at Newcastle at Marathon Stadium against the Knights, and I think I hit someone's head with my wrist. And I thought, this doesn't look good. I looked at it and it didn't look right. So I went off, and it was dislocated. So I had to go to the hospital and got the green whistle, which helped me. And I remember I went to the hospital, and the person the doctor was on that night, he couldn't get it back in. And then so they had to call the specialist, and he came in straight in. It was pretty unusual, because normally when you dislocate your wrist, you break your wrist, but I didn't break it. I just dislocated my wrist. So and then that was it. It was my worst injury. So very lucky.
Very
Never
lucky.
did any knees or no. That sort of brings me to, you think about Cameron Smith, that obviously you think he can play all that footy and not have sustained a major injury. I know he's out injured at the moment with a busted shoulder, but that's probably been his worst injury at the moment. He's 37 or 38 years of age.
Yeah.
Played 500 and something games at NRL and State of Origin Test match footy, and doesn't miss a game. Phenomenal. But I think you can just be blessed with a good body physique. You know that some guys are just injury prone. Some guys aren't.
Well, I think there was a report that came out today that revealed that he was made entirely of rubber, Kerrod. So that would explain a lot, actually.
Well, he's got. They say he's got the body of an accountant, but geez, I tell you, if there's a few accountants playing NRL, he wouldn't be lasting too long. But yeah, I think he's smart too. He plays the game smart. You know, doesn't get him into situations where he's going to get hurt. But playing in this position, you can't hide. You know, he makes 40, 50 tackles a game, you know, and you get up against some 120 kilo monsters. So he's just a phenomenal player and a phenomenal athlete. Yeah.
Seems like I haven't had a chance to speak to him yet, but he seems like a phenomenal individual as well. Him and Billy Slater just seem like they're really great at practicing a lot of gratitude and just very, very humble individuals. Is that your feel?
They're humble. I mean, they had all that success at Origin, and they, like us, were in awe of the blokes that went before them, and they would meet the players before them, and they'd be in awe of them, you know. So, and now they're phenomenal players, and go down history as our greatest players, but their greatest is their, like I said, their humbleness and that comes across to the other players as well. That's why Melbourne have been so successful, because those four blokes, Smith, Slater, and Cronk. It's the fact that they were so good, but they were so humble and great leaders, and players would follow them, you know, and they would be the first at training and the last elite training. They set great examples, you know, that get where we had to work hard. Well, Cooper Cronk had to work harder than anyone, you know. So did Cameron Smith, and so did Billy Slater. That's why they were great players.
What would how old are you now, Kerrod?
52.
52. What would a 52-year-old Kerrod tell a 15-year-old Kerrod Walters?
Just go out there and enjoy life. Opportunities are going to come your way. You're going to take some of them. You're going to miss some of them, but just stay on the path. You know that if you believe in yourself, and you'll get success along the way.
And was there any ever period in your life where times were tougher than what they have been?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that with my heart attack, because I had no symptoms, they thought mine might have been because of stress. And during that period, my mum was dying with cancer, and I was taking that pretty hard. And I was going through a messy marriage, divorce, and doing it tough financially too. So that was probably what caused my heart attack, and I've sort of moved forward and fine now. So yeah, but that was probably what caused mine. That was a pretty difficult period of my life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. They talk about stress being one of it's a huge killer, and how it changes the molecular sort of structure of cells, and how important it is to try and minimize. And they think that, practicing the art of gratitude and a lot of the meditation type stuff is really, really beneficial. Certainly, in my own experience, Kerrod, I've developed into a bit of a distance runner, and I even had a crack at the Blackall 100 back in 2018. I don't know if you know that run. It's one of the ultra runs, the 100K run down in the middle of the rainforest there, just in the Sunshine Coast. And that was sort of my meditation. But I've tried to incorporate a first thing in the day, just being present with myself, and it really helps, particularly with what's going on right now. And I think, like, in addition to that, is there any other advice that you'd give anyone out there that's really doing it tough at the moment?
Just get help, mate. Just talk to people, get on the phone, just make the call and get some help, get some support. Because there's nothing worse than sort of keeping in and trying to deal with problems just by yourself. I just think you actually probably similar on a simple length that when I talk to young kids, I say that they never be afraid to ask questions, because some kids won't ask questions because people think they're stupid. Because if you ask questions, you get answers. Answers give you information. Information gives you knowledge, and knowledge is powerful. So don't ever be afraid to ask questions, and that's the same with don't ever be afraid to get help. It's not weak getting help. It's a sign of strength and a sign of smartness. Yeah.
Oh, I love that, Kerrod. That's brilliant, and there's a lot of people out there at the moment that I think will be grateful for that really sage advice. And before we wrap things up, was there anything that you wanted to finish on?
Yeah, well, probably. Yeah, I'll tell this story. I love this story. It's about my brother Stephen. So I'll tell it. So back in the late '80s, when Stephen went down to the Canberra Raiders from Ipswich, his first job, he was the actual groundsman at Seaford Oval that they used to play back then. And this one particular weekend, Stephen wasn't playing; he was out injured, and so it was a Friday afternoon. He'd mowed the Seaford Oval, had a look at magnificent. The lines were straight for once, and he thought, I've done a fantastic job here. I'm going to go back to the League Club and have a few beers. So away he goes, and about 5 hours later, he decides to drive home, which he shouldn't do. So he gets in his ute and off he goes. He gets about 5 minutes down the road, and he notices this police breath testing unit up the road. He thought, I'm in trouble here. He pulls over his ute and gets his lawnmower at the back of the truck and starts mowing this bloke's front yard. Anyway, the bloke who owned the house thought, come in, what's going on here, mate? He said, oh, look, mate, Steve Walters from the Canberra Raiders. I've had a few beers. The police are down the road. I'll just mow your front yard till they go, and I'll be on my way. Oh, is that right, Steve? Out comes the wallet. See if I'm the local police sergeant. When you finish the front, you can do the back as well.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Well, Kerrod, it's been an absolute delight. Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. Ladies and gentlemen, Kerrod Walters.
Thanks, Lavin. My pleasure, mate.